Welcome to my show, simply entitled Women Influencers. I am Veronica CCIM, founder and CEO of Capstack Commercial, a commercial real estate company serving the greater Orlando area. Today's guest is Allison Weiss. Raised in a military family, Allison not only built a successful recruiting company from scratch, she lives, works, and travels in her camper, a story you don't want to miss. Please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe below. I welcome your comments and please share with someone who can benefit from this podcast. Hi, Allison. How are you doing today?
So great to be here with you, Veronica. I'm so excited to get to talk to you.
Oh, likewise. And I see that you are in a very special place that you're
Yeah.
recording. You can talk about that a little bit later on. But
Mhm.
I wanted to just dive right in and ask you about your story, how you grew up in your environment, and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So I had a very unique childhood. I actually grew up in a military family and I went to three elementary schools, two middle schools, and two high schools. So by the time I was 15, I had lived, I think, 13 different places. And then I settled down for a while. I lived in Wisconsin for about 12 years and then very unexpectedly was relocated to Los Angeles for a job that I was working at the time. So I have seen a lot of the country and I've experienced a whole lot in growing up really all across many different states. And when I found myself in California, it was very unexpected, but I also felt like there was something I needed to learn from California and I was there for a reason. And so after a short time of continuing to work for the company that had relocated me to California, I found my way into commercial real estate. And I feel like that was really meant to be. And I have been in commercial real estate recruiting folks for the last just now 10 years, which is very exciting.
Oh, how exciting is that?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm really curious. Well, first of all, let me say
Mhm.
thank you for your family service. I mean, I
Oh,
think
thank
that
you.
that's so very important that not only is the person that's serving in the military, but it's the family that, like you, for instance, that had to move several times because of this service, right? So the whole
Yeah.
family does deserve our gratitude. And so I just want to say thank you for all of that. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about California and
Mhm.
how you landed in commercial real estate.
Sure. So moving from Wisconsin to California felt like moving from Earth to the moon. It was very different from a cultural standpoint, and that was an interesting transition for me. And that particular role, actually, that I took was a national role, helping to basically take some of the strategies that I had used in recruiting in the state of Wisconsin and roll them out nationally. But they basically put me on a plane to California, moved me out there to put me back on planes out to the East Coast primarily and to the Midwest. So I was traveling an awful lot. It was a very interesting time. I don't know if you have ever traveled to a point where you feel like you've kind of lost yourself. I remember getting into the elevator one morning to go to work and I was already at my office and I looked down and I was wearing two completely different shoes. I was just so turned around that I thought this isn't for me. I need something different. I wound up switching to legal recruiting for a while and realizing that negotiating with attorneys was not what I wanted to do my entire life. And then I just got a lucky LinkedIn message that said, "Hey, I see that you're working for this company. I'm wondering if you might be interested in having a conversation." It was from a person who was working at Marcus and Millichap. I then spent, a few years working in Marcus and Millichap's corporate office, which was a great entry point into the business. I worked directly with the CEO, John Karen, and some of the other executives. And so for me, it was finding a place in a home where I felt like I loved the business. I loved learning every day. I never felt like I was going to be the smartest person in the room, and that was invigorating to me. And I felt like I had found a place where I connected with the people, I connected with the subject matter, and I was going to continuously be challenged the rest of my career. So it really felt like this is where I was supposed to be after many years of wondering if I was in the right place.
Well, and just for context,
Mhm.
how many years into
being in the workforce did that
Ah,
actually come into play?
good question. So I graduated and hit the market right before the great financial crisis. So right around 2008. And then I got into commercial real estate about 6 years later in 2014. So
Oh,
I had been in business for a little bit, but I had seen I had worked in a family office, which was a great experience that did a little bit of real estate and some other things. I had then worked in recruiting for farmers insurance at the state level and then at the national level. And then I'd worked in legal recruiting before I found my way into commercial real estate.
wow. So
Yeah.
that's really awesome. I had wanted to ask you, how did you get into recruiting? Do you have an HR background? Is that
Good question. I actually don't have an HR background. I have learned about HR and I've done a little bit of HR as a part of my recruiting work now. But the interesting link between me doing recruiting in my past and today was that I was a member of a sorority. So I was a part of a sorority called Gamma Phi Beta. I held a lot of different positions, including president of the chapter. And because every spring and fall you're going through a recruitment process, it was very similar, and it, I think, was a direct connection to some of the skills that I had learned in college, and also just my interest in getting to know people and asking questions and finding out what makes people tick. So for me it was a really natural transition and something that I fell in love with.
Oh, that's pretty awesome how a
Mhm.
network can actually kind of open doors for many of us. And I often talk about the fact that as an immigrant, I really did not have that network moving into
Yep.
this country at a later stage. So that is very, very important in someone's journey in building their
Mhm.
career. But I wanted to ask you a very important question. So
Sure.
you are actually recording from your camper. So
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I found um back in COVID times, it was probably the summer of 2020 that I was climbing the walls. I was going a little crazy because I was stuck in place and I was in the LA area, which, as you know, was one of the hot spots for COVID. My lease was coming up due, and I had this reoccurring thought that I should just give away everything and travel, which at the same time occurred to me as a crazy thought because no one was traveling. But I decided what I would do is when my lease was up in October, I would do, kind of Airbnb and road trip around the country until it became not fun. And I expected it to be maybe a few weeks to a month, and then I would get sick of it and want to settle down somewhere. Well, 6 months later, I was still loving it. I wanted more privacy. And so I decided I would buy a little camper. I would trade my car in for a truck. And that was about 3 years ago, actually, this month, that I got the camper and I got the truck. And I have done, I want to say 80,000 miles. So in 6 months, I did about 20,000 miles with my old car in Airbnb. And then I've done 60,000 miles with my truck and my camper. So I
Wow.
have been all around the country and it's just been an incredible experience.
Wow, and you're just living the dream, let me tell you. And
Yeah.
it's funny because I've met a couple of other people who have done
Mhm.
that, and they have kids, and they have
Yes.
gone on they bought a camper just like you, and they've been on the road, homeschooling their kids, and you
Yep.
obviously do your business from your
Yes.
camper.
I don't understand how the people are doing it with kids. I do it with myself and two big dogs, and it's been really quite an adventure. But I do think, so many people are very excited about international travel, but I think the US has such a unique landscape and so many interesting communities and cultures within it that it's just such a great experience being able to work from wherever I'd like to.
Oh my God, I would love to do something like that, but unfortunately, I'm kind of stuck here.
Tied
Not stuck,
down.
tied
Yep.
down, and but I do quite a bit of air travel. But boy,
Yes.
that is, I love it. So I'm just so excited that you're on this show today. Well, I'm gonna move on and ask you
Sure.
about challenges.
Mhm.
So if there was one challenge that came to mind, talk about that and how you overcame it.
Sure. So, one of the first challenges that I faced as I was moving into the professional world was that I went to school to actually be an art teacher. So, I don't naturally have a background that speaks to commercial real estate whatsoever. when I was graduating, it was a bad time to be a teacher, and especially a specialist teacher. There weren't very many jobs. And so I had to quickly pivot and think about what were the additional skills that I had? What other networks did I have? Thankfully, I had prepared by taking internships outside of my major. I had been in my sorority, and that opened a lot of doors for me. But really, just knowing how to pivot, knowing that when a door closes for you, that a window is opening somewhere else, and just being someone who searches for solutions instead of problems was really something that helped me to transition into the role in the family office, knowing that I was going to work as hard as I possibly could to overcome my learning curve, and I was really hungry. Those were the reasons I got my foot in the door there.
Oh, that's amazing. And I'm quite sure that although it was very, very hard for you being in a military family, moving from place to place, that
Yes.
probably also helped, right? If and I didn't want to put words in your mouth, but that did that help in really just having this kind of really positive attitude?
I definitely think so. So the adaptability and the grit and determination, I think that I got from growing up in that way. I also think too, back to that time in my life, I was moving schools before there was Facebook or social media or any of the tools that we have now. And so for me, I had to very quickly learn a new culture, a new community, make friends, get to know people, build solid relationships. So I think all of that really helps me in my work now. And so what was probably one of the biggest challenges I ever experienced is growing up that way has really shaped me into the person that I am today and has made me be able to relate to all different types of people on a really personal level.
I want to ask you if there was something that came to mind with regards to something that you're proud of that had a
Mhm.
really great impact or that you have influenced others or an organization, what would that be?
For sure. So I'm thinking of an individual who was a marketing person for a client that I used to work with from a consulting standpoint. So I started working with this company. They didn't have really any HR or recruiting systems or processes established. And I went with this client to help them to build that machine, that recruiting machine inside of their company. But that meant that I was also going to touch other parts of their business, and one of those being marketing. And I think initially that marketing person was a little challenged that I was asking questions about marketing and that I wanted to, understand that part of the business and I wanted to collaborate with that person. And I think initially he questioned maybe my motives and felt, hey, stay over here, recruiting is over here and marketing is over here. um, One of the things that I think helped to overcome that is I really just wanted him to be as successful as possible. I wanted the company to be as successful as possible. I was really interested in helping him as much as possible to, score points on the marketing board as much as I was concerned about putting points up on the recruiting board. And over time, he and I developed a really great relationship. And he also got to see what my life was like running my own business. Today, he runs his own marketing firm focused on commercial real estate. And I think a big part of the reason that he felt prepared to go out on that limb is he knew that I was supporting him. He had seen my success and he had understood the work that it took. And I feel like we have just bonded even further since then. And I am friendly with his wife. And it's been very rewarding for me to see a relationship that started off a little rocky, but I was able to show my motives that I really cared about this person. I really cared about them individually and professionally. And now today, to see them to start their own business and have great success has been so rewarding.
I think that it's so very revealing, right?
Mhm.
When you you really just want to help someone and
Yeah.
that has made a great impact on that other person, but not because you wanted to give yourself a pat on the back,
No.
but because you really genuinely cared about this person. And that's an
Mhm.
amazing story, Allison. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing that. I was going to ask you if there was one piece of advice that you could give to our audience, what would that be?
Absolutely. So I have an acronym that I absolutely love that I hope sticks with your audience, and that is HOPE, which stands for Help One Person Every Day. It often feels like we are living in a very challenging world, and there are so many things that we can't affect change on, and it can feel very daunting and overwhelming. And that same thing is true for me. But if I can go to bed at night knowing that I have helped that one person, that day is a win for me, and I can lay my head down and feel really confident that I've done my best. So hope help one person every day is something I wish everybody would do and think about, because it's an easy win and it's an easy way to pull yourself up if you're not feeling great.
Oh, that's amazing. And that kind of points to that story of how
Mm.
you've made an impact on that other business owner now. And so
Thank you.
that I hope everybody takes away from your episode today. So we've
Awesome.
come to the part of our interview where I get to pass on the mic to you and you get to ask me a question. So please, Allison, go ahead.
Awesome. Well, I'm very excited to ask you this question, Veronica, because you and I started our companies right around the same time. And certainly we have dealt with an interesting world and interesting new revelations, both in business and our personal lives. I'm wondering, how do you deal with uncertainty as an entrepreneur?
Really great question. And it's so funny. I just learned today after you said that we started our companies kind of the same time. And
Hmm.
sure, we had effects from COVID and also the
Hmm.
changes that are going on with the economy. It has been
Hmm.
quite challenging. But the one thing that I always do in the morning is to always believe in a positive outcome.
Mm.
They say that everything happens between your ears, right? It's that this
Yes.
space right here is where it all happens. And if we keep dwelling on what our challenges are
Hmm.
and not really focused on the solutions, which you've alluded to earlier on in the interview, right?
Hmm.
When you don't picture the positive outcome and you don't look for the solution, you can
Hmm.
easily be drowned in the challenges that are
Hmm.
before you. And I think that happens not only in our businesses, but also in our personal lives,
Yes.
right? It's always just making sure that you're hanging on to every positive thought that you can. And if you can't have it on your own, look to others. You have friends and
Hmm.
family who support you. I think this is how everybody, not just women, not just older
Hmm.
women like me or younger women like you, but everybody, even men, right? If
Hmm.
you always just think about the positive outcome, I think you can overcome anything. And well, to add to that, lots of prayer for sure.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
we have to believe that he knows our name and that he sees
Hmm.
us and that we
Hmm.
can get through whatever challenge just goes before us. So thank you for that question. And Allison, I want to just thank you for being with me today here on our show. And you are a very, very vibrant, very bold leader in the
Thank
industry.
you.
I mean, look at you, you're in a camper. Oh my gosh. People are probably just so jealous of that. But do you have some parting words for our audience?
Oh, great question. So I just want to say thank you as well. You're someone I very much look up to and love to have in my personal circle, and I'm so appreciative of the opportunity. I guess I would say to everyone, as much as you possibly can, the work that you do to explore who you are and your values and what's important to you is always going to be in your benefit. I think so often, and I'm guilty of this as well, earlier in my career, I was on autopilot. I was climbing ladders in different environments that really weren't for me. And thankfully, just by happenstance, I found my way into the industry and to the role that was meant for me. But as much as you possibly can, do the work to figure out who you are, what you value, and what's important to you, and take choices and take chances every day to bring yourself closer to what's important.
Oh, that's amazing, Allison. And again, I just want to thank you. I'm sure that we're going to see each other in
Yes.
one of these events or conferences, but I always look forward to our calls every month with the Power Beacons. Shout out to the
Yes.
Power Beacons. But again, I just want to say thank you and I'll see you soon.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.